What's up, guys? Mispess here, back with another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes commentary video, and I am out at CG Capital Games Studios today, and I have had an incredible time. We are actually wrapping up the day, and I was just fortunate enough to grab probably two of the most knowledgeable guys. As far as it comes to just general knowledge, I don't know. They might be laughing at me, but
yeah, we'll see after the interview.
Yeah, I'll let these guys introduce themselves, and I'll get to some questions.
Hi, I'm Sean. You guys know me as CapGasp on Reddit and the forums. I'm the event designer, and help out a lot with the rest of the sort of design team kind of stuff.
My name is John Salera. I'm the executive producer for the title.
All right. So what I wanted to do today was basically sit down, ask you guys some questions. A lot of these questions came from guildmates, and then some of them came from other users that I've interacted with on the various chat applications that I use in the game. I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with Line and Discord and the various methods that guilds have found to communicate with each other outside of the in-game chat.
Signal flares.
Yeah, signal flares, white flags. So let's just get straight to the beginning of my questions here. So in the beginning of the game, users could sell back gear. That feature was removed because players were unintentionally selling back gear that they didn't want to sell, i.e. training droids and other things like that. So instead of a buyback feature, similar to the way that it was in the beginning of the game, could there be a gear conversion system implemented? Because I know that a lot of players have a surplus of those Mark V data pads, but a lot of players need the Mark IV or even the Mark III data pads. Is there a way that we might be able to upgrade or downgrade gear at a conversion ratio? Say, like, it takes 2 pieces of gear to upgrade, but if you downgrade, you're going to get less.
So that's a feature that specific approach we have not talked about, so we would have to kind of go back to the team and figure out what it would take and what the economic impact would be. So let us kind of take that one back.
Right, okay. Does that sound like something that might realistically be implemented in the future? Because I know that right now, obviously, certain pieces of gear are kind of... I figure that the drop rates on certain pieces of gear are created to create somewhat of a bottleneck on the progression of characters and the progression of players' rosters. And that gear conversion may throw a little bit of a monkey wrench. Is that something that you might have to talk to the team about?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
okay.
I wouldn't call it a bottleneck. Certain pieces of gear are just more rare,
right.
And
so
buffs. Yeah, among others, but yeah, that's certainly one of them.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, let us take that idea back. That,
okay.
Like I said, that specific approach has not been discussed.
I think from a design perspective too, if people are hoarding certain pieces of gear, like if they have way too many purple laptops, it makes more sense to have a future character use those.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So that there's no perception of no value.
Another way for those to be useful.
Okay.
Exactly.
So then, also speaking on the topic of gear, challenges reward different gear at different tiers. And unfortunately, especially I think it's the intelligence gear challenge, you're stuck choosing between the highest tier, gaining the new gear that is obtainable once you unlock the highest tier, tier 5 of the gear challenge, and tier 2 and 3 of the tier challenge, getting those droid collars, those Mark II or Mark III droid collars that are used everywhere by every character. Is there some way that the gear challenges could be made more of a one-stop shop where players aren't forced to choose whether to get the hair dryers? I don't remember what they are,
right.
or the droid collars. Right. One idea that I think could resolve this issue is to have those higher tiers reward all the gear from all the previous tiers. Rather than just rewarding 3 pieces of gear or 3 types of gear, it would reward all of the gear from the earlier challenges or the earlier tiers as well as the highest tiers.
Yes, that one I'd need to talk to one of the guys who manages the economy.
Yeah, one of the product guys.
Yeah, I mean, it seems seems reasonable to kind of approach it that way. So I'd want to go talk to them and see.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing to consider, I think, is that as we introduce more tiers of PvE, all of those earlier tiers of gear, right? Like I know most of my characters need 50 of the little hypo spray things.
Yeah, the hair
like
dryers.
a billion of those things. But you can earn those from PvE nodes.
Right.
And now that, you can sim 20, 30 at a time, like I haven't, ever since we introduced multi-sim, I haven't really had a big problem getting them. So, that's another avenue.
Yeah, I just know that I find it, especially when a new character is introduced, you're leveling up that new character, and they need all of those lower tier items that you may have already used your entire supply of. Because I know that Emperor Palpatine needed a ton of those droid collars. And I found myself actually going back and doing the second tier of the challenge to get those droid collars instead of doing the highest tier, where I still needed those hair dryers from the highest tier. So
yeah, I mean, I believe part of the intent and how that was laid out is as characters are going up through the progression paths, that certain challenges are unlocking and rewarding the things you needed at that point in the life cycle. But as I said, let me go back and see what the rationale was in terms of how they're being allocated. Right
I got my fingers crossed. And then also when it comes to gear, I mentioned the bottleneck earlier. Zerka stun cuffs, I think, are the bane of everyone's existence. There's only one place to get them. Challenges, or not challenges, but the shipments or farming them from nodes. I know that certain events and the raids also supply stun cuffs, but you're still rolling a dice. You're not. It's not a consistent, not as consistent. Is there any plan to put stun cuffs into, say, the shard shop, where you have other guild or raid reward items, or the guild shop, where people can spend their guild points? Because I know that you added some lower tier items to the guild shop. Is there any way that maybe stun cuffs could find their way into one of those two shops?
Well, one thing I would point out that we've done is we introduced a pack for crystals, relatively cheap, the gear pack.
Yes, the gear pack.
Galactic gear pack, I think they call it. And we took a very conscious effort when designing the way that
rates
works to say, like, okay, these are the things that people need. Let's put that in there and not put a bunch of superfluous, like, greens and blues and stuff that people don't need in there. So generally, something like that is our attempt to sort of relieve the stopgap of, like, okay, hey, like, let's make this pack. We hand out hundreds of crystals a day to users, so that it's actually relatively inexpensive to acquire.
It is a fairly good deal, but I know that a lot of free-to-play players, myself being one of them, I cling onto my crystals like I'm like Gollum. My precious crystals.
The moment I'm done leveling up and I don't need crystals for buying refreshes anymore, it's like gear packs and cheaper chromiums.
That I think I may start spending some of my crystals on gear packs. In my mind, it's a better deal to save up my crystals, and once I hit 14 crystals, then buy a guaranteed full stun cuff from the shipments. So the gear packs to me aren't as much of a good deal, because that's 600 crystals. I can buy 2 packs, or I can save up 2 packs worth plus a little more. So
I play, my main account is a free account as well, and I kind of have some of that same approach where I get to 1400. And
so players kind of have to choose how they want to spend their crystals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And just also to mention, so with the new release that's coming out, there are other shipments, other ways for you to acquire things. I don't know if the stun cups are going to be showing up.
I do know that there's gear. I just hooked it up the other day, but I would have to check what that gear is.
And another point that Warrior, his link will be in the description below. I'm pretty much going to link all of the guys who are back out here this time in the description below. But Warrior brought up a good point that once you hit 85, you're also getting that gear pack or little bonus pack at the end of every day. You're with your daily activities, and he actually got stun cuffs today from that. He got 2 stun cuffs. So I guess that's another way that those pieces of gear are coming and getting introduced to the economy. So,
but your question of can it be added to the shard shop? Yeah, we can certainly
discuss that, because I know that there and even the guild shop would be awesome. So I don't think it would necessarily break the economy
They had gear
to do
in that
that.
shop for guilds.
Not stun cuffs. Stun cuffs
Oh.
are not. Yeah, stun cuffs are not in there.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, let's keep going. Drop rates. We all know the drop rates are low, but
I've never
how
heard
are
that.
What?
I
I have
right?
everything.
Yeah, right.
That's so strange.
Wow.
I'm always getting 3 or 3 stun cuffs every
100%.
time I sim.
150%.
Jeez. But anyway, so how are drop rates calculated when doing multi-sims? The common perception on the forums and Reddit and everywhere else is that you have the best drop rates if you only sim 2 to 4 battles at a time. Is that simply psychological, or is there a drop rate calculated somehow by calculating the number of sims that are being done and then calculating the percentage drop rate versus the number of sims, or is it just every time you sim, it's rolling the dice for each of those sims individually?
Sure. I mean, I've got some stuff to say about it. You can jump in.
We don't change the drop rates at all, right? If you sim something 30 times, it's just simming it 30 times.
Right.
I think the only real difference is if you only need one of something, like if you're looking for a specific piece of gear, if you
Maybe
sim it
just do
30 times and you only need one, then it is more beneficial to do it one at a time as you get
Okay.
it, because it may only take 4 or 5.
Okay.
But we absolutely don't change the drop rates like that.
So it is purely psychological.
It is. I mean, so one thing I was going to mention is, and the game's been out for almost a year now, and every week or two you'll see a post in the forum saying, "Hey, just spontaneously, I think the drop rates changed. They did a stealth nerf
Right.
drop rates," or "Hey, after the guild update, they changed the drop rates of these things." We haven't changed the drop rates. We don't also calibrate the drop rates, or we don't. I want to say this the right way. We don't calibrate the drop rates based on if you're.
The time of the day.
I've heard people say if I'm one shard short of the next promotion tier,
There's no
the drop rates go
dynamic
down.
alteration.
It always just seems that way, though.
Far simpler. It is far simpler than any of those theories would contemplate. It's actually quite simple, and whether or not you're playing the actual battle, whether you're auto-playing the battle, whether you sim the battle, whether you do multi-sim, it's
The drop rate
the drop
is
rate's
the
a
same.
drop rate.
Okay.
Right?
Could
So-
you shed light on what those drop rates are?
I
or-
actually don't know many of them off the top of my
There's
head, and we
thousands of things in the game.
Okay.
I don't know.
So it's not just a set drop rate for if this is a purple item, it is a 30% drop
No, I
rate.
don't think so.
So, okay. That's interesting to know. Then, speaking of Sims, are there any plans for implementing a more immersive sandbox table to the event, like a holotable where players can perform skirmishes without risking their arena or galactic war squads?
Yeah.
To test out different team compositions against teams of their own design.
So this is something that I've seen players request before,
Mhm.
something that I think people would enjoy. Not announcing a specific date or anything,
Right.
but yeah, we have been talking about adding some type of skirmish mode to the game where you'd play without any cost, but also without any rewards.
Right.
Just for theory crafting and just
Right.
to kind of iterate and find new teams that might combat the current meta effectively and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
that is something we're talking about, but I don't have a specific date yet.
So, I know that ships are right around the corner. Could it be something that the design team who's been working on ships, which I can promise you guys, the design team working hard on ships, they have been working extremely long hours to make sure that ships are awesome, and I can tell you right now that ships are awesome. So they have been working super hard, super long hours, and it's an incredible addition to the game. When it comes out, you guys are gonna literally crap bricks. So to put it mildly, it's gonna be awesome, guys. But at any rate, so that development team, I know that they've been working long hours, really hard. Could that be something like their next big project? Be a skirmish?
The skirmish.
Not
So I
necessarily.
appreciate
It hasn't been.
I appreciate you
I think the
expressing
next
all.
big project is sleep.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all the enthusiasm about chips. We're dying to get it out there. The entire team has been working long hours, weekends, sacrificing time with friends and family to pull this release together. So I'm glad you're liking the other guys here and digging it as well. So that's great to see. Skirmish mode would not be the next thing. We
Okay.
have some other things.
Okay. So a little bit
Leading
ways
up
down
to
the
Rogue
road.
One that we have to jump to.
Right.
You know,
Rogue One. Yeah.
Sean and some of the other designers have, a little period of rest coming up, but we've also got a bunch of other things we need to.
Not for me.
Yeah,
live ops is no rest for us.
Yeah,
no rest for the wicked. Yeah. Okay. So this might be something that you work on between the beginning of next year and episode 8 coming out. Well, maybe sometime.
Like John said, no promises.
Right.
But...
No promises, but it is something that we're aware of, and we actually talked about.
Cool.
Skirmish mode with a couple people today.
So then, further on that topic, maybe the next evolution of skirmishes, when it is introduced, is there any sort of plan for like a guild on guild competition?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
we have some
where guilds are paired up against other guilds that are at similar strength to battle each other and come out with one guild being victorious.
Yeah, absolutely. The guild feature was a big update back when it came out. It's been very popular. Raids were a good addition to the game. Getting chat in there, all that stuff was important. But we all feel that we've only scratched the surface in terms of what guilds can be and what they will be. So part of that is more activities for the guild to do together in a kind of a more cooperative manner, but also getting to the point where guilds can compete against each other
more
in various ways. So that is definitely one of the big pieces that we want to get to.
I think it would be really awesome to be able to potentially attack other guilds on that leaderboard. Kind of almost make that a leaderboard more of like a kind of like the player board. Arena and make it like a bounty board. Yeah, I think that'd be a pretty cool feature to build in. So, like you said, we've only scratched the surface. We could theory craft all day, but we've got other questions to get to. So, shifting gears to character farming, a lot of players feel slighted by the constant addition of characters to the Cantina battles rather than other shops. Is there a method to this madness, or is it just because of something that we're not aware of, some behind the doors? It takes more work to put a character into Galactic War Shop, or it's easier to just add them to a Cantina node, or is there... I've heard the theory that, the reason that you're adding them to Cantina battles is because characters spend crystals to refresh their Cantina energy, whereas players aren't necessarily going to spend as many crystals to refresh their Galactic War Shop, plus they can't buy Galactic War tokens with crystals, so it's more of a money-making scheme is what I've heard people accuse it of.
Yeah, so trying to get some thoughts on this as well. We have been adding characters to various places. Cantina has had a bunch of open nodes, so we're putting some characters there, but also with the ship's release, there are more ways for you to acquire characters. I don't know, do you have anything to add on that?
Definitely some of it is backfill. We had lots of Cantina nodes that didn't have any characters on them. And some of that is also, we have added stuff to the store. We put we put credits into the PvP store, and we put,
I guess what people are looking for is more characters in those stores. And the last time I think somebody said a character was added to the shipments or Galactic War was, I think, in May. So I think it was, I'm trying to remember what it was. Somebody said it was, granted the Jawas were all added to the different stores, and then I think one of the most recent additions to the Galactic War was Magma Trooper, maybe, or I don't know.
I think we'd have to look up.
It is just a matter of you had a lot of empty spaces on the cantinas, and so you just had to fill those spaces.
Basically.
Okay. So it's not like
there's nothing nefarious about it.
It's not like you're just trying to say, "Ha look at all these jokers who are going to spend all their energy on characters instead of mods."
If we wanted that, we wouldn't have given people free energy.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
So then the other
saw that people wanted more energy, we gave it to them.
Right. So then the problem there is that you have all these new characters, and even paying players, so the pay to play, are going to be going out and spending their Cantina energy to get TIE Fighter Pilot. Some of those characters, Scareful Pathfinder, who weren't introduced through Chromium packs, so they won't have an alternate method to gain those characters. That's obviously going to put a pause on a lot of players' mod farming. Is there any plans to maybe give Cantina energy on more than just that one bonus energy time each day to help players along in that endeavor with so many more?
I don't think there's a plan to add any more
so much
energy,
more material.
One point I'd say is, this game is a lot of things. one of the ways to look at it is a resource management
Right.
activity.
And
right?
that is one of the biggest issues in the game is,
So that-
is players managing those resources correctly.
Are you at a point where your key outcomes you're pursuing, the goals you're going after, are best served by increasing the set of mods you have, or
Farming
getting more shards for a given character? I mean, that's something that each player is going to have to answer that differently. I'm actually in my play, my free account that I'm playing, I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm done with shards and I need to focus more on mods, and that's just
Okay.
kind of a player by player decision.
I would say, especially in the specific example of TIE Fighter Pilot, he's going to be important for ships, so we're going to,
Right.
the initial events for ships are going to help you out with TIE Fighter Pilot,
Right.
and then as you and the players listening know, we have these events which are called assault battles,
Right.
and fundamentally one of those things those events do is they help you to collect more characters, right? If you think about, I think about our game like collecting toys, right? Like you're collecting your toys from different toy boxes, and these assault battles help you out. Well, TIE Fighter Pilot, as a he's not Emperor Palpatine, he's going to go into that event when we get around to rerunning it. So there will be alternate ways to acquire these characters.
And I know that all of us appreciate
Right.
the additional bonus. I mean, there's nothing more fun than finishing an assault battle and getting 20 or 30 shards of a character, and it's like, yes, this is so awesome.
That's exactly what I was going for. Great, I'm glad to hear it.
So then one of the other ideas I heard, is there any plan for progressively moving a character to a more obtainable location later on down the road? So like TIE Fighter Pilot, he was introduced right now on just one Cantina node. Is there a plan maybe a few months down the road to move him to Galactic War, introduce him to Galactic War, or move characters as, rather than just throwing a character, straight out to the Galactic War where they can be farmed in fairly quick manner? Is there a way to, is there maybe a thought process of, well, this character's been free to play for a while, but only in a Cantina node, or this character's been free to play, but only on 2 hard modes, like the First Order TIE Pilot? Are there any plans to progressively make players or characters easier for characters or players to
I don't know of any specific plans. I mean, months out is months out.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of examples where we've
I don't think it's ever been done
characters
before.
around. Yeah, so I don't think we've done that before. Never say never, but
Okay.
I don't think we've talked about that.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they do like Darth Maul's coming out of packs for the ship store, so. But
Yeah, I don't know how much you guys want to talk about characters coming out on the ship store, but I know that
there are some characters coming out.
Yeah,
into the
there's a ship store.
there is a ship store.
I don't have,
Hey guys,
I don't think either of us have it memorized, so
yeah,
there's a store and there's stuff in it.
Yeah.
there are.
And
That'd
by
be
store,
awesome.
by store we mean shipment.
It's just like the arena store where
Right.
you get the points for placing higher
full
your
of
arena rankings
awesome
with the
things.
ships.
You get a unique
And it-
currency based on ship-related activities, and that currency is used.
Yep,
in
just
this-
like the
in
arena
this-
store, and it does have some pretty awesome components in there. But I just don't. I have a feeling that you are going to have those random players who figure, I'm going to spend it all on characters, but you're not going to progress as quickly through the arenas
Sure, currency. If you
right,
PvP
yeah,
earn it, sure.
But you're going to have to, like you said, resource management. You're going to have to choose whether to spend those those
Yeah, what is
points
your
on
personal meta
characters
strategy?
or
What are
ships.
your goals? What are you after?
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then, speaking more on characters, the Jedi Knight Anakin rework was widely viewed as an incredible success. I know that I loved the rework, and I know that anytime that you've reworked a character and they become meta and they start showing up in everybody's arena squads in the top 100, you've done a great job with fixing characters, and I think everybody will basically agree with me on that one, that Jedi Knight Anakin is now one of the most awesome characters in the game without being overpowered. Are there any plans to rework another fan favorite like Boba Fett or Darth Maul? I know that those are 2 of the most requested. Personally, I would love to see Asajj Ventress reworked sometime in the near future. If so, who and when? If you want to reveal any.
So I guess we can definitely reveal that the next character getting reworked is Boba Fett.
Yes! Oh, that's
And
awesome.
He is in fact going to be the December login character.
Yep.
That is so awesome. That is.
No, and he's awesome.
Yeah.
It's going to be a ton of fun.
And he finally uses his gun.
Yeah.
He's actually going to use his gun.
Yeah.
So that gun that he's holding,
So
Yes.
patiently.
that doesn't get used,
Yeah.
he's
I'm
actually
gonna use it now.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
Can you reveal any of the plans for any of his abilities, or are we going to keep that under the
Some of it
hood
I
for
know.
a
Do you want me
while?
to talk about it?
I think maybe just a kind of a high level in the faction component.
So Boba is that he got reworked, and there's now a new tag, Bounty Hunter.
Awesome! That is going to be incredibly.
Bounty
that
hunters,
is awesome.
generally speaking, are also scoundrels, but not all scoundrels are bounty hunters.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
And so, I haven't checked the latest update, but I do know, for example, that his basic, where he shoots his gun, has a chance to proc a second attack.
Okay.
So, and he's been turned from a tank to an attacker.
So he's going to lose maybe a little bit of health, but gain some good attack power.
So,
Awesome. That is going to make a lot of people
be
happy.
prepared to enjoy Boba Fett much more come whenever that update comes out.
Awesome. I know that all of my buddies in my guild are going to be they're going to be ecstatic with this. We actually just formed a new alliance called the Bounty Hunters Guild.
There you go.
So
Perfectly timed.
Yes.
we are excited, super stoked to hear that there's now a Bounty Hunter faction tag. So
You
what?
might even say that they had foresight.
What?
Whoa!
Wow.
So bounty hunter. So could is IG88 gonna be a bounty hunter? Because I know that a lot
don't actually know. I know we assigned it to a few different characters who are bounty hunters, but I don't want to say for sure because I don't have the list in front of me.
Okay.
I could get the list in front of me.
Okay.
You and this technology.
In the meantime, I will
I have
pull
the
up
same
my next
technology.
question real quick.
I should use it.
So actually, ironically enough, my next question was: recently, the new faction Separatists were added to the game, and several characters were added to the Scoundrel faction. Are there any plans to create a new faction? Obviously, Bounty Hunters. New faction.
The answer is Bounty Hunters.
So then I guess John, you have that list up?
I was working on it.
Okay.
Working on it.
Okay. And then also when it comes to other factions, there are a lot of factions that
it's in the game. They haven't gone live with the updates
so
yet.
so
Well, for sure, Boba Fett.
So for sure Boba Fett, probably Dengar, IG88, Zam Wessel,
all the right, like I would assume
the
Dengar,
standard
actual bounty hunters,
right?
Because I know one of Boba's powers has bounty hunter synergy, so
right, and by default, generally you aren't adding a new faction unless there are at least 5 characters of that faction, right? Or is there any kind of limit on that? Or
now
I wouldn't call it a hard and fast rule.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean,
because I know that there's only 3 Tusken Raiders in the game, so it's not like you have 5
Ewoks
Tuskens and only 4 Ewoks.
Right.
We're
cognizant of that for sure.
Right. So then when we're talking about factions, there are a lot of factions that people feel are pretty neglected, like the Tuskens or the Night Sisters. Are there any plans to help make those factions more relevant, aside from making them mandatory for events?
So I'll be diplomatic here, and I'll say that we all have our favorite characters, our favorite factions, and it's a lot of it is a question of development cadence, like how fast can we put characters in the game, what obligations do we have for certain characters at certain times. But there's definitely a big, long list of stuff we want to put in, and it's just a question of how, when, why, all that stuff.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that make us so excited about this game is there are tons of characters in Star Wars that we have yet to add to the game, and they keep bringing out new cool movies, new TV shows, and other types of things.
It's endless.
Yes.
This is a game that can run for years, just even on that alone.
Right.
Along with the addition of ships and other things that we've talked about. So we think there's a lot that's constantly
endless possibilities.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are all very excited for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So, talking about anticipation, a lot of players are super, super, super excited to see Jedi Luke, R2D2, possibly the Starkiller base Rey, who is actually in Cantina Battle. I think it's 9B.
Lightsaber Rey.
Yeah, Lightsaber Rey, Starkiller base Rey. And then talking back about the Night Sisters, are there any plans to introduce characters like Mother Talzin or some of those other characters? I know that there are some iconic ones, like I said, Jedi, Luke, and Starkiller Base
I think it's the
Rey,
same answer we just
R2-D2.
gave.
Yeah, it's a matter of just
time.
priority and capacity on the team side, and also the what is the right pace at which to bring up new characters. I mean, we are bringing up a lot of new characters.
No, I know, and
right
especially
now, and then you add on top of that all
winter
the ships that are coming out.
ships
There's a lot coming out right now.
Ships is what, like 20-something. It's effectively like adding 20-something characters.
Yeah,
right, because you're adding all those ships for
And
characters.
then there'll be new ships,
Right.
just new characters.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
New fleet commanders, all that stuff.
So-
exactly.
Yes,
I know that
we
they're
want to get
right.
there. I mean, Mother Talzin is another one. You know, I'd love to get in because I think she could really kind of bring the Night Sister faction together, and
then she could also be another good dark side healer, because I know that the dark side is very short on healers.
Well, I mean, healers or whatever. It depends on what we wind
Right.
up, wanting them to do. But
True.
Yeah.
True. Okay. Cool.
Night Sisters already have 2 healers.
And then when it comes to when it comes to a character, how do you guys go about developing a character? Like what goes into how is a character decided on? Like how did you guys decide on which characters to create from Rogue One? Like how did you? I mean, especially generic characters like a Shore Trooper.
Well,
how do you decide on that?
So some of this comes from Conduit. Matt, who met, and,
right.
Kind of his ideas for like mechanics and how to shift the meta or reinforce certain things or make things better and more interesting. In a combination with, for example, in the instance of Rogue One, we were presented the opportunity to introduce all of these incredible new characters,
right?
Who are, for the most part, all of them are brand new Star Wars, and they're very interesting, and and it was an incredible opportunity. And they're like, hey, here's like Gaston and Chirrut Baze, all of the, like Jin and like all the main characters of Rogue One. But some of it is also, okay, well, we're 3 or 4 months away, like we can't put out the most amazing thing ever just yet because even we don't really know. But they're like,
right.
Hey, here's Shore Trooper. We're like, okay. And for example, in the case of Shore Trooper, Conduit was looking into, well, this whole meta of like triple strike, danger zone, like insta gib somebody. It was like, well, we need something that can help counter that so that we have a more healthy PvP meta. And that got married to, okay, well, we're putting out this character, work with Lucas, who's an incredible partner, to say like, okay, well, the thematics of this character are like ABC, and we want to like sort of meld these two together to create an interesting character that people are going to enjoy. And then from there it goes to, generally like, how are we going to put it into the game? What's the channel? And that sort of thing.
And I know it also helps to build hype for the movie. So Lucas working closely with you guys is kind of a two-way road. I mean, they're giving us great characters to play, and in turn, I know that I'm friggin' stoked for Rogue One.
We are.
I don't think there's a single person in my guild who's not excited for Rogue One.
Release day, noon, whatever.
There. So that's awesome. And then one of my guildmates asked me a good question, kind of more for the techie side of things. What software do you guys actually use to create Galaxy of Heroes?
So for the design team, we create everything in XML.
Okay.
And we run it in Unity.
Which is a scripting language.
Yeah, it's a scripting language basically.
Okay.
And then everything is we have a Unity, our games are built in Unity, and so we run it in Unity editor. Our art team uses a variety of 3D and 2D software to create the art. If you go to the artists, you'll see they all have the giant Wacom screens, whatever they're called. And I don't know what is the audio. What does Nick use? No idea. Some awesome audio thing. But it's actually very basic. I mean, text, XML, Unity. Simpler is better, right?
Right. Yeah.
A lot of whiteboards.
Yeah.
A lot of whiteboards. Yeah, there's whiteboards all over this place. So
inspiration happens everywhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. So then, kind of going back to guilds, is there any way that we can use the in-game inbox, which I feel is largely underutilized, to introduce player-to-player communications? It'd be awesome to be able to communicate directly to other players that we can see, air quotes going on here, in games, specifically server, opponents, your allies that you have in game, because your allies may not be in your guild. You may have friends who are allied with you, and you can't communicate with them. There's no way that you can communicate with those players. Is there any way that we could introduce like a messaging system where you can email, quote unquote?
Yeah, I mean, kind of rounding out the players' collective ability to communicate is something we definitely want to get to. The guild chat is just kind of dipping our collective toe in the water there. Player-to-player communication, we do want to get that in. There are things we have to make sure are in there as well. Like, so if someone's harassing you,
right, that you
can
can block
them,
or report.
You can block them. There's a whole layer beyond just enabling the basic communication. That's part of the reason we ended up not going for the full robust.
I imagine it probably would have been a lot more work for your development team and everything else.
Exactly.
And that would have taken away from raids, ships, and everything else. So.
Yeah, and enabling world chat is another thing we want to get to, but there are some technical challenges there where you're dealing with a much bigger audience, obviously, than
so
50 or so people.
Could the next progressive level be server chat, where everybody that's on your arena server, you could communicate that way? I know that would possibly be something.
We haven't talked about that. It's an interesting idea. Yeah. We actually haven't talked about segmenting it that way, but I think that might be...
Because I know that a lot of people are like,
I wish I could... how it's hooked up under the hood, too. Like,
True.
It could just be equal effort to do both.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
cool.
But that's an interesting...
I'm going to have to get going in a second. Did you have any more content questions for me?
Yes. Let me see here. All right, so we're gonna break open this Pandora's box.
Sorry, listeners.
Tebow.
Oh, Tebow. John, all you.
Yeah. I broke Tebow. No.
You're gonna get hate mail. You better be careful.
I can very briefly explain what the problem is.
Yeah. So I mean, we are aware the problems with stealth.
Right.
We actually did try to fix it one time. That made
it
worse. Right.
Oops.
And we've kind of said these words before. It is more complicated than it would appear, and it's both a technical problem, and then once it's fixed on the kind of code and engineering side, then there's a bunch of cleanup and furthermore testing that has to be done on the design and the QA side. And so it's kind of a rat's nest situation that looks simpler to fix than it is. But that is something that is pretty far up on our list to tackle once we get clear of the ship's release.
Okay. So that's good to know that at least you guys are he's still on your radar, and I know that, like you said, it's a very complicated issue. So
yeah, it's all the knock-on changes that have to happen.
Yeah,
right.
And that is much more time than I think it would seem to be.
Okay. Mods. I don't know. Would you be able to answer questions about mods?
I mean, I guess it would depend.
What's the
Mark 6 mods. Are those in the works anywhere in the near future, or is that something that again is way down the road?
That's further
down the road.
I don't think we have a clear.
Okay. So Mark 5 are going to be the top tier for a while.
I'm hesitant to say yes to that because we may upon further conversation, review of the data and whatnot, decide. Hey, this is the right time to bring that out. So I can say as of right now, there's nothing.
So how might those be introduced? Would it be?
I don't want to posit that because we
have to figure that out when we decide to do it.
Okay.
We've also had any number of
a lot of theory crafting would probably have to go in there.
Bring that out.
Okay.
And how we
then talking about mods right now, a lot of players tend to rotate their higher quality mods between different squads. Is there any plan to implement a more user-friendly interface for equipping, sorting, transferring mods between characters? Basically, in my opinion, the easiest way to fix that would have all mods, whether they're equipped or unequipped, show up on that left side screen. And then if you choose to equip a mod that is already equipped to a character, it would simply warn you, hey, this character is already equipped to this character. Or, sorry, this mod is already equipped to this character. Are you sure you want to equip it? It will cost you X number of credits.
I don't think we have that feature on our backlog, which is kind of how we manage the tasks. But we can certainly take a look at it.
Okay. I think that's one thing that a lot of players, because I know that when I have to change mods, I end up using Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes.gg to look at, okay, what mods do I have, because I can sort by secondary stats, especially speed mods. Knowing that, I have this secondary speed mod on another character, well, how do I find that mod? I use Star Wars Galaxy of GG.
I think one thing that we could definitely say is that one thing that especially has always impressed me about our game is that the what's called the UX, the user experience, is very, very top tier. I've always been incredibly impressed by what our team has been able to do, and as you saw, when we did the tournaments update, we also included the checkbox sorting for characters.
Oh, yes. That was awesome.
So we're always looking for ways
to
do those sorts of user experience, quality of life improvements, to make the game better for everybody.
So mod sorting might be something that would be realistic to see in the future, or a better.
I think it's certainly conceivable.
Right.
We have a bunch of things we're planning on getting to after the ships update, and cleaning up some of those annoyances in the game would be included in that effort.
Okay.
So, anyways, we can talk to the team about that and what it would be.
And then I know that it might have actually been, was it you or was it Cozy Kuzi mentioned that the AAT raid would be getting tweaked in one of the recent developer notes.
I'll touch on this briefly. John can go into more because he's been in the meetings, but we're definitely aware that we need to make some adjustments. What those are, I don't work on raids.
Okay.
I help with input and stuff like that.
Okay.
But, what those adjustments are, when they're going to go in, and all that stuff, that's in the works.
Okay. So I know that one of the biggest issues right now also in regards to the raid is the dreadfully long process that is the animations of those.
Yeah, and we're definitely aware of that as well. And the art team
is
just a couple days ago, or time's a little blurry right now because of all the extra hours we've been putting in. But
the days just start to melt together.
So they're aware of it. They're talking about options. We do want to speed that up, and we want to make that experience challenging but enjoyable at the same time. And I think certainly we've heard the feedback. The players are finding it far more on the challenging side than the enjoyable side.
Yeah, I think I had a discussion with one of your other members of your development team over lunch, and I think the general consensus, and this was also a discussion that Ramon and Warrior and Arnold 2101 and I had, that the heroic is actually in a really good spot. I feel like the heroic the heroic tier is fairly balanced. I know a lot of people will probably be mad at me for saying that because they're having trouble beating it, but it is beatable. It can be done, and I feel like players with the right characters, players with the right rosters are capable of clearing it. And obviously, Rome wasn't built in a day. The AAT tank raid was not designed to be beaten in a day. Yep. So I think the normal is really the only mode that needs to be tweaked. Would you be able to answer questions about characters? Or
I can.
Is that more
very, very quickly.
Okay. Legends characters. Darth Revan and Starkiller being just two of the top most popular. Are there any plans for incorporating any of those non-canon characters in the game, or is that still something that...
Well, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. We all have our favorite characters.
Right.
I will say Darth Revan is one of my favorite characters, but it comes down to how fast can we put stuff in, what can we put in, when can we put it in. Okay. We all have our own characters, and John's the boss, so whatever he wants and goes in.
Hey John, Starkiller, Darth Revan.
I think Darth Salera is going in for Darth Salera.
No, because I think that the fact that HK-47 is in the game, I think really helps solidify the notion that it's possible. And that the possibilities truly are endless, that it isn't just canon, that this game is truly possible, truly has the possibility of including all-inclusive.
That's always been part of our
legends, non-canon, and canon. So.
Our goal and vision for the game, and Tom touched on this earlier, is to kind of let players kind of recreate that toy box feeling that they had as kids collecting the figures. And Lucas and Disney have been awesome partners and very, very supportive of what we wanted to do with the game, and we meet with them at least once a week. We've got very active communication happening with them.
They are freaking awesome.
And we are aware, from our own kind of perspectives and from the what we hear from fans, that they want to get a bunch of these other characters in here. It's really comes down to how quickly we can get them in and what the right pacing is.
Okay.
For the health of the game. So.
Well, I know that you've got to head out.
I do.
CapGasp, thank you for coming out,
Yep.
and I appreciate your time, man.
Of
I
course.
know that you are busy folks, so
Yeah,
I think I've got one more question I'm going to ask you, John, and then we're going to call it a night.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening, and I hope you guys love ships because we loved making it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it is amazing, guys. Yep. Thanks. So my last question for you, John, and I think you are probably the most qualified individual to answer this question. So
It's a simple question.
yes, it's more of a compliment / question. A lot of players really appreciated the transparency that you guys showed in explaining the mechanics on how potency and tenacity tend to interact with each other on the forums. I know that personally I appreciated knowing how those things work under the hood. And that kind of transparency really helps players feel more comfortable about how the legitimacy of our in-game RNG, or RNGesus as some call it, which is the random number generator, basically the dice that get rolled behind the scenes. And it's something that, as developers, that you can provide the community in order to help them feel less cheated if they have a bad day of luck, if or drop rates. I've had my days of going and spending 2 full Cantina energy refreshes and only getting 2 character shards. So I know it happens.
Yeah.
So, is there are there more plans for you guys to be more transparent on the forums with how game mechanics work? If people have a big issue with, say, drop rates. I know that one of the biggest issues right now, especially with bays being introduced through Chromium packs, I know that a lot of people have been reporting extremely low drop rates on his shards through the Chromium packs. Is that intentional, or is that just an unfortunate side effect of that new character's drop rate not necessarily being increased appropriately with Chromium packs? Or is that something that happens when a new character is introduced through Chromium packs? Is that character's drop rate, so to speak, increased naturally because that obviously you're going to have players going out spending Chromium packs with that character being their target, their goal? Are drop rates increased with Chromium packs and new characters?
So, I mean, we can talk about base specifically. So, definitely heard the feedback from players. We've been talking about it since we started getting that feedback. We're talking about options right now in terms of what we want to do about it. But to kind of the larger question of getting more information out into the hands of the players and the community, we certainly want to keep doing that. Part of it's just time.
Right. Yeah.
The team, it's again almost a year since we launched worldwide, and the team has been running pretty much the whole time.
Right.
Just
no breaks.
There've been a few breaks along the way, but there's been a lot of effort put into the game, and so getting some more of that information communicated out is certainly something we want to do. And Jesse and the other folks who are able to spend more time on the forums are able to communicate some of that. But we do want to get more of that information out into the hands of the players, because we want people to understand how the mechanics work.
Right.
We do try to put that information in the game, but also some of the nuances are harder to understand.
Right. Okay. And then the Chromium drop rate, is that actually increased for new characters that are introduced to Chromium packs, or is that a long-term increase, or is there any increase at all to their drop rates?
That one's a little harder to answer, just because I think depending on which version of the Chromium you're talking about, what mix of characters, things are going to be a little bit different.
Okay.
But as I was saying, in the case of bays, and I know we've been getting a lot of forum posts about the recent change that was made to Chromium. We're discussing options. So
okay,
expect
Are there any
change.
future changes to Chromiums planned for the future? I think
we can always say yes, just because that's been an evolving pack.
Okay.
But also, as the game matures, as the number of characters out there increase, as more types of characters, and also the inclusion of ships now and all of the related materials for advancing your ships, we've got to look at the packs, and we've done this repeatedly over the past almost 12 months. what's the right thing, what's the right approach for packs moving forward. So that's an evolving conversation.
Right. All right. Well, I think that about wraps up all my questions. We've already been going for a little while, and I know there's more stuff I want to do, and I think it's about time for dinner.
Yeah.
So, in fact, we may be the only ones in the building anymore. So, I appreciate your candid attitude towards a lot of these questions. I know some of them were kind of off the wall, and some of them were probably questions that you've been asked plenty of times in the past.
I know some I wasn't able to give a specific answer on because things are
unfortunately answers just aren't there.
Changing. Yeah. So.
But I'm incredibly grateful for your time. Incredibly grateful for your opportunity to come out here and hang out with you guys, preview ships, keep an eye out for all my videos, guys. There's just so much with ships that it is going to be a lot of content and a lot of videos. So if you aren't subscribed, please subscribe for notifications whenever I do upload a new video. Are you on Twitter?
I do have an account, but I never use it.
All right, well then we won't worry about it.
Yeah, just for future reference. But yeah, that maybe I'll change that in the future.
Darth Salera.
Yeah, my in-game name right now is Darth Salarius, but I may reset my account and play a different way. So I played through the game about 3 times.
Oh boy!
And so just to kind of keep coming back through as the game evolves. But yeah, so really appreciate you coming up. Appreciate the time, and looking forward to getting ships out.
Oh my gosh, ships!
Yes,
they're so awesome. Well, again, thank you,
sure
and take care.
Yeah, we're very excited. We've got a lot of stuff coming out of ships, and then we've got Rogue One and the holiday, and
oh yeah, and then just more stuff,
more cool stuff,
and level Captain 90 isn't going up anytime soon, right?
Gotta go.
All right. No. Well, thanks for watching, guys. Yeah. As always, like, favorite, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook. I love to tweet out, new things, accomplishments that I do in game, any new characters I unlock. For instance, I tweeted out when I hit 7-star Vader. Should have a video on him coming out soon. If you haven't seen my late videos, please go check them out. I've got a playlist dedicated to all of my character reviews if you're interested in that. And then I mentioned it in my last video, but I am planning on reattacking all of my previous character reviews. So if you've got a character that you want me to reattack or a new character that you want me to try and get a review of, I will work diligently to make that happen for you guys. So like, favorite, subscribe, and as always, catch you later.